Britain's former Prince Andrew has been arrested on suspicion of misconduct in public office. Now known as Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, he was taken into custody in Norfolk just a short while ago. He is accused of allegedly sharing confidential information with the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein.
Prince Andrew, once a fixture of Britain's royal elite and the Duke of York, was born into unimaginable privilege, living a life of honor, influence, and grand estates. Celebrated, revered, and surrounded by power, he commanded respect and luxury few could fathom.
After Australia and New Zealand, Canada is now backing the removal of former Prince Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor from the line of succession.
But today, stripped of titles, cut off financially, facing legal scrutiny, and exiled from his 30-room royal lodge to a flood-prone Norfolk farmhouse, Andrew stands at the edge of total disgrace.
Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor was pictured on all fours on top of a woman sprawled out on the ground in the latest batch of Jeffrey Epstein files.
So, how did a prince fall so far, and what does it mean for the monarchy? This is the story. Andrew's stunning fall from grace. For more than 20 years, Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, once celebrated as the Duke of York, enjoyed a life of unparalleled comfort at the 30-room royal lodge. Nestled in sprawling grounds, surrounded by perfectly manicured gardens, and safeguarded by cutting-edge security systems, the residence represented not just a home, but a symbol of status, privilege, and influence. The upkeep of such a property, with its grand interiors and expansive estate, came at almost no cost to him personally, a rare luxury afforded to few, even within royal circles. Every detail, from the polished floors to the high-tech security cameras, reflected the seamless, almost effortless lifestyle he had long taken for granted. In this environment, Andrew occupied a secure and respected place in Britain's aristocratic middle tier. He carried prestigious military appointments, took on public duties, and maintained a visible role in royal functions, embodying the image of a modern working royal. To the outside world, he was a figure of authority, wealth, and influence, comfortably ensconced in a life many could only imagine. Royal Lodge was more than just a home. It was a fortress of status and security, a tangible marker of his standing within the monarchy, and a stage on which decades of royal appearances, military honors, and ceremonial duties unfolded. But now, that long-standing era of comfort and certainty has come to a sudden and dramatic end. What was once familiar, secure, and taken for granted has been ruthlessly stripped away. The luxurious royal lodge, with its prestige, gardens, and sense of safety, is no longer a sanctuary. Andrew's life, once buffered by privilege and routine, is being upended, leaving him exposed to uncertainty, isolation, and a harsh new reality. Andrew's next chapter begins at Marsh Farm, a humble, working agricultural estate on the Sandringham grounds in Norfolk. Far from the grandeur of Royal Lodge, this move represents more than a drop in luxury. It marks a stark decline in status, influence, and family standing, forcing the former prince to navigate a life defined by isolation, practical challenges, and diminished privilege. For Andrew, the move to Marsh Farm is emblematic of a fall from grace, a stark reminder of how quickly status, comfort, and privilege can be undone. After decades in the public eye, performing royal duties, and enjoying a life few can imagine, he now confronts isolation, uncertainty, and a humbling adjustment to a dramatically different lifestyle. This transition is not just about a change of address. It is a defining moment in his life, illustrating the consequences of past choices and the relentless pressures of reputation, accountability, and the royal institution itself. Prince Andrew, who once enjoyed the luxury of Royal Lodge, has now been relocated to Marsh Farm, a move sanctioned by the royal family. But does this location truly befit the second son of Queen Elizabeth? Are there features on the property that could help Andrew feel at home? Or does this relocation simply mark a further relegation of the prince? Let's uncover the details. From royal luxury to rustic reality. For locals, Marsh Farm is a far cry from a royal palace. It is a practical, working farm in the heart of Norfolk, shaped by seasons rather than celebrations. Unlike the polished grandeur of Royal Lodge, the property features multiple aging buildings, some long abandoned and quietly succumbing to time. These structures are functional, built for work rather than comfort, with none of the lavish interiors, manicured gardens, or ornate details that once defined Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor's home. Moving here marks a dramatic shift, from elegance and privilege to rustic simplicity, isolation, and the unvarnished realities of countryside life. The surrounding landscape is deceptively serene. Flat, open countryside stretches across fields that eventually merge into wetlands, a terrain as beautiful as it is unpredictable. Unlike the elevated and secure Royal Lodge, Marsh Farm sits on a floodplain, placing it at risk when Norfolk's rivers swell or the local water systems struggle. Officials warn residents to register for emergency flood notifications, a precautionary measure that underlines just how different this property is from the secure and luxurious estate Andrew once called home. What was once a life defined by control, comfort, and certainty now faces the unpredictable whims of nature, where heavy rains or mechanical failures at the nearby Wolverton pumping station could transform farmland into temporary waterways. Beyond environmental concerns, Marsh Farm exudes an air of isolation. Its rustic charm is entwined with practical challenges: aging roofs, drafty walls, and long-forgotten maintenance issues that demand immediate attention. The property is functional for farming, yes, but it offers none of the luxury or ease of a royal residence. There are no high-tech security systems, no staff on call for daily upkeep, and certainly no lavish entertainment rooms or formal gardens. For Andrew, accustomed to being insulated from the mundane pressures of upkeep, the contrast could not be starker. This relocation is not merely a change of address. It is a dramatic shift in lifestyle, expectations, and status. Marsh Farm embodies the unpredictable, hands-on reality of rural life, a far cry from the seamless privilege of Windsor. The fields, wetlands, and aging buildings are beautiful in their own way, but they also demand vigilance, patience, and resilience. It is a landscape that reminds Andrew, and the world watching, that the comforts of privilege can vanish quickly, replaced by the stark realities of isolation, environmental risks, and the relentless work of everyday survival. In essence, Marsh Farm is a world apart from the Royal Lodge, a property that tests endurance, humility, and adaptability, and a dramatic symbol of how far a prince can fall when royal protection, prestige, and certainty are stripped away. The reality of Marsh Farm serves as an indirect way of relegating the prince. But what led to this dramatic fall for the brother of the King of England? Now let's explore the BBC interview that changed everything: Andrew's public misstep. In November 2019, the world turned its attention to Buckingham Palace as Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, once the Duke of York, faced a defining and highly controversial moment in his life. Seated across from journalist Emily Maitlis for a broadcast of BBC Newsnight, Andrew gave his first public account of his connection to Jeffrey Epstein, the convicted sex offender whose name had already cast a long, dark shadow over his reputation. What was meant to clarify his involvement instead became the catalyst for a dramatic and unprecedented fall from grace. During the interview, Andrew stated that he had first met Epstein in 1999 through Ghislaine Maxwell, directly contradicting a prior account from his private secretary in 2011, who claimed their acquaintance began in the early 1990s. This glaring inconsistency immediately raised questions about credibility and transparency. But the most shocking moment came when Andrew openly expressed no remorse for the friendship. In his own words, the connections and opportunities that Epstein had provided were actually very useful. To millions of viewers worldwide, this response came across as callous and insensitive, particularly given the gravity of Epstein's crimes and the suffering of his victims. The fallout was immediate and intense. Social media exploded with outrage, news outlets dissected every word, and commentators across the globe criticized the former prince for his apparent lack of empathy. What might have been a private misstep for another public figure became a historic moment of royal reckoning, one that would forever alter Andrew's public standing. Within months, his military honors were revoked, his royal patronages were severed, and his connections to charities and official duties were cut. The luxurious, secure life he had long enjoyed began to unravel, setting the stage for the dramatic relocation, financial stripping, and legal scrutiny that followed. The 2019 BBC interview was far more than a poorly judged conversation. It became the defining turning point in Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor's life. Private mistakes and misjudgments, once whispered about behind palace doors, were thrust into the global spotlight, transforming personal failings into a scandal the world couldn't ignore. Every word, gesture, and admission was scrutinized, replayed, and debated across social media, news outlets, and television screens worldwide. From that moment, Andrew's fall from grace was no longer a quiet internal matter. It became a public spectacle, a dramatic unraveling of privilege, reputation, and royal protection, witnessed by millions. The interview reshaped not only Andrew's life, but also the monarchy's approach to accountability, reputation, and family loyalty. It served as a stark reminder that even centuries-old institutions could not shield their members from the consequences of personal choices. For Andrew, what was intended as explanation and clarification instead became a defining moment, marking the beginning of a cascade of events that would strip him of privilege, influence, and security, leaving him exposed to the harsh light of global scrutiny. The words spoken by Andrew during the 2019 BBC interview set in motion the prince's gradual fall from grace. But will he be relegated to Marsh Farm without extensive renovations? And what risks does he face at his new residence? Let's find out. Preparing a home that barely exists. Though Marsh Farm represents a clear step down from the polished elegance of Royal Lodge, the property is far from being left to chance. Behind the scenes, an intense flurry of activity has turned the humble agricultural estate into a hive of preparation as teams rush to make it habitable for Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor. Pest control specialists from Command Pest Control, a company trusted across eastern England and holding a royal warrant, have been seen inspecting the property, addressing threats from rodents that are especially active in the harsh January cold. With freezing temperatures driving rats and mice indoors, the task is urgent and complicated by estate rules forbidding cats, leaving no natural predators to keep the infestations in check. At the same time, electrical contractors and construction crews are working tirelessly, installing modern wiring, upgrading outdated systems, and ensuring that the property can support not only basic living, but also enhanced security and modern amenities. Security teams are erecting new fences, installing cameras, and adding controlled access points, signaling that privacy and protection are a priority. Far from being a simple farmhouse, Marsh Farm is rapidly transforming under the pressure of these upgrades, turning functional but aging structures into spaces capable of hosting a former royal. Entertainment systems are also being installed, suggesting that comfort and convenience remain important, even in a property as modest as Marsh Farm. The upgrades show that while Andrew is moving into a residence that lacks the grandeur of his former home, the royal household is determined to make it safe, functional, and livable. Every detail, from pest prevention to electrical modernization, from fencing to security cameras, reflects a calculated effort to bridge the gap between rustic practicality and the standards expected for someone of his former rank. The frantic pace of work underscores the urgency and complexity of the relocation. Marsh Farm is not simply being prepared as a temporary stop. Significant resources, planning, and manpower are being poured into a property that, until recently, had been largely overlooked and underutilized. It is a delicate balancing act. The estate must preserve security, prevent pest issues, and provide basic comfort, all while managing the logistical challenges of converting a rural working farm into a residence suitable for a disgraced former prince. In short, Marsh Farm may appear humble, isolated, and rustic, but the activity happening behind the scenes reveals a far more calculated and resource-intensive operation. While it lacks the polish, history, and grandeur of Royal Lodge, the estate's transformation illustrates the seriousness with which the monarchy is handling Andrew's relocation, ensuring that, despite the downgrade, he will move into a property that is secure, functional, and ready for life in the shadow of his dramatic fall from grace. Though Marsh Farm is being prepared to make it somewhat suitable for Andrew, but is he willing to be relegated to such a place? And if he does move, will his ex-wife, who continued to live with him at Royal Lodge even after their divorce, accompany him? What other options might he have besides the farm? Now, let's dive into a lonely transition. Temporary housing and family separation. Even as plans for Marsh Farm move forward, Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor may not be stepping directly into his new Norfolk property. Sources suggest he will first reside in a temporary location, chosen to bridge the gap while renovations, security upgrades, and pest control preparations are completed at the farm. This adds a layer of uncertainty and stress to an already overwhelming upheaval, turning what might have been a straightforward move into a drawn-out, tense process. Days turn into weeks, and every moment carries the weight of an impending lifestyle change unlike anything he has experienced in decades. Adding to the emotional strain is the growing distance from Sarah Ferguson, his ex-wife. Though divorced, Sarah had lived alongside Andrew for years after their separation, providing companionship, stability, and a familiar presence within Royal Lodge. Her support softened the blow of public scrutiny and helped maintain a semblance of continuity amid royal pressures. But according to reports, Sarah is now planning to strike out on her own, leaving Andrew to navigate this turbulent period completely alone. Without her familiar guidance and presence, the prospect of moving into a semi-remote farmhouse, far from the social and professional networks he once relied on, becomes even more daunting. The situation raises questions about how Andrew will manage during this interim period. Some reports suggest that Princess Eugenie's residence in Portugal may serve as a temporary refuge, offering a safe and discreet place to stay. While practical, this option highlights the growing isolation Andrew is experiencing. The very people who had been closest to him, who shared his life and offered support, are now physically and emotionally distant. This sharp reduction in familiar contact intensifies the sense of upheaval, making the transition not just a change of address, but a profound shift in personal life and daily routine. On top of the emotional strain, there is the pressing deadline to vacate Royal Lodge by late January. The combination of a rapidly approaching move-out date, an unfinished Marsh Farm, and no immediate support system creates a perfect storm of tension, logistics, and anxiety. Every decision, where to stay, how to organize belongings, how to maintain privacy, carries immediate consequences. For someone accustomed to decades of stability, staff, and structured life within royal estates, these weeks of waiting in temporary accommodations represent a dramatic and disorienting rupture. In essence, Andrew's move is not just physical, it is profoundly personal. The separation from his longtime companion, the temporary uncertainty of lodging, and the looming pressure of deadlines combine to create a period of intense isolation and emotional strain, amplifying the stakes of his relocation and signaling that the consequences of his fall from grace extend far beyond property or finances. Though Marsh Farm is being prepared for Andrew, it is not certain that he will actually move there. But how will he cope in such an isolated place? And will the king continue to support his brother financially, no matter where he chooses to be? Let's uncover the devastating details. Stripped of privileges, The upheaval in Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor's life goes far beyond a change of address. The royal crackdown has extended into the financial realm, signaling a decisive shift in his standing within the monarchy. Reports indicate that King Charles has formally ended Andrew's annual allowance, a sum of £1 million that for years underpinned a lifestyle of comfort, ease, and near-total security. This allowance wasn't just money. It represented access, freedom, and the ability to maintain the trappings of privilege without worry. Its removal marks a dramatic withdrawal of support, leaving Andrew to face the stark realities of life outside the protective shadow of the crown. But the financial blow does not end there. Sources reveal that Andrew is also losing a multi-million-pound private security contract, a benefit previously tied to his former status as a working royal. This contract was more than a job. It guaranteed access to protection, resources, and influence within networks that few could navigate without his rank. Taken together, the loss of both the allowance and the security deal represents a profound severing of ties, stripping him not only of income, but of the very systems that sustained his former position in royal life. The message is crystal clear. Stripped of wealth, influence, and royal protection, Andrew now faces a stark, unfiltered reality. The comforts he once took for granted, grand estates, personal staff, ceremonial duties, and elaborate security systems, are being methodically removed. The life of ease and insulation that cushioned him for decades is vanishing, replaced by daily challenges, practical responsibilities, and constant public scrutiny. Every layer of privilege is being peeled away, leaving him exposed to the harsh consequences of his actions. For a man once untouchable within the royal sphere, this is an unmistakable fall from grace. This is far more than a mere change of address or a minor disruption in Andrew's life. The move sends a loud and unmistakable message from the monarchy. His place in the royal inner circle is officially over. The crown is drawing a firm boundary, showing the world that wealth, status, and family connections cannot shield anyone from the consequences of their actions. Even centuries-old privilege has limits, and past mistakes, no matter how deeply hidden, will eventually catch up. A dramatic lesson in accountability and royal consequence. For Andrew, the implications are staggering. The loss of financial support and security resources compounds the isolation, uncertainty, and practical challenges of his move to Marsh Farm. It underscores the reality that his fall from grace is total and inescapable. A life once cushioned by wealth, titles, and royal protection is now replaced with responsibility, exposure, and the unflinching weight of consequence. In essence, the monarchy has made it clear that Andrew's privileges are no longer guaranteed, and the era of unquestioned royal favor is finally over. But what risks does stripping Andrew of these privileges expose him to? And would the king intervene if financial support is no longer on the table? Or is he truly forsaken? Let's find out. The royal condemnation. The tension surrounding Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor reached a historic peak on February 19th, a day that should have been a private celebration, his 66th birthday. Instead, it became a moment of unprecedented legal and public scrutiny. On that very day, Andrew was arrested, thrust into the spotlight like never before, and instantly became the focus of global attention. The arrest signaled that the consequences of his past actions were no longer confined to whispers or palace corridors. The law was now fully engaged, and the world was watching. Adding to the drama, King Charles released a formal statement on the same day, publicly distancing the monarchy from his brother's actions and making clear that royal protection would not shield Andrew from accountability. In measured yet firm words, the statement expressed concern over the allegations, emphasizing that the matter would proceed through the full, fair, and proper process and be handled by the appropriate authorities. The king's statement left no ambiguity. The law must take its course, and neither familial ties nor royal privilege could alter the outcome. Charles went further, stressing that authorities had our full and wholehearted support and cooperation, signaling the monarchy's willingness to uphold justice above personal loyalty. This was not merely a procedural statement. It was a historic moment, the first time a reigning monarch had so publicly addressed legal concerns surrounding a close family member, making it clear that even royals are subject to the same laws as ordinary citizens. The arrest and the king's statement together marked a dramatic turning point. For Andrew, the protective shields of wealth, privilege, and status were shattered. His previously secure position within the royal family could no longer protect him from scrutiny, consequence, or public judgment. The long-standing assumption that royal connections could insulate him from accountability was irrevocably broken. This shocking moment sent a powerful signal to the world. The monarchy values responsibility, law, and integrity above family ties. Andrew's fall from grace was no longer private. It became public, official, and irreversible, a stark reminder that no royal is untouchable. His personal missteps and long-hidden controversies were thrust into the global spotlight, turning centuries of privilege and prestige into a cautionary tale. Royal titles, wealth, and connections could no longer shield him, proving that even those born into royalty are not above the law. For a prince who once moved freely through palaces, ceremonial halls, and public ceremonies, the events of February 19th were a stark and humbling reminder. Privilege can be fleeting, protection can vanish, and accountability is unavoidable. The stage was set. Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor was now not just a disgraced royal, but a man facing the full weight of legal scrutiny, stripped of the safeguards that had once seemed unshakable. Instead of a worthy birthday gift, Andrew was arrested, and the king made it clear that he must face the consequences alone. But what does this mean for Andrew? Will he ever move into the farm prepared for him? And what does the future hold for him? Let's find out. The complex reality behind Andrew's rural relocation. To the outside world, the story seems straightforward. Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, once the Duke of York, is leaving the grandeur of Royal Lodge and moving to a rural Norfolk farm, a place marked by modest buildings, open fields, and the risk of flooding. The headlines capture a simple narrative: a disgraced royal stripped of privilege, trading luxury for isolation. But the reality beneath the surface is far more intricate and revealing, hinting at the careful planning, expense, and strategy behind this seemingly simple move. Marsh Farm may appear humble, but its preparation is anything but basic. Renovations are ongoing across multiple structures, some of which have been abandoned for years, requiring structural work, electrical upgrades, and modern installations. Pest control teams are working against the natural winter surge of rodents, complicated by estate rules that prohibit cats, while security specialists erect fences, cameras, and controlled access points to protect privacy and safety. Every aspect of this rural property, from practical maintenance to technological upgrades, involves significant expense, indicating that even as Andrew is publicly demoted, substantial resources are being mobilized to ensure the property is livable, secure, and functional. This intense preparation highlights a central tension in Andrew's life: appearance versus reality. To the public, it seems he is being pushed into an ordinary, even precarious, rural existence. In truth, however, he is moving into a place that is carefully managed, monitored, and upgraded, a reflection of the monarchy's ongoing interest in controlling his transition, protecting their reputation, and limiting potential disruptions. It is a home that is part punishment, part practical management, and part symbolic gesture. Andrew is no longer a working royal, yet he is not being abandoned entirely. The relocation also encapsulates the emotional and psychological turbulence of Andrew's post-royal existence. Once ensconced in a well-supported world of ceremonial duties, staff, and public prestige, he now faces isolation, uncertainty, and exposure. Legal scrutiny, the loss of financial allowances, and the absence of his former companion, Sarah Ferguson, magnify the impact of a move that is as much about control and consequence as it is about housing. Whether Marsh Farm will eventually serve as a permanent residence or merely a temporary waypoint in Andrew's turbulent life remains unclear. For the public and royal watchers worldwide, the uncertainty adds suspense and intrigue. Every decision, every renovation, and every security measure is being observed, analyzed, and debated. The property, in all its contradictions, mirrors Andrew's own precarious position, a mixture of downgraded privilege, enforced oversight, and enduring, if diminished, protection. In essence, Marsh Farm is more than a rural property. It is a symbol of Andrew's dramatic fall from grace. It embodies the intersection of privilege lost, scrutiny imposed, and survival required, a vivid illustration of how quickly even centuries-old institutions can redefine a royal's world. While the headlines simplify the story, the reality is layered, expensive, and deeply telling, a story of transition, consequence, and relentless public attention that shows the world just how far a prince can fall. So, what do you make of the royal family's treatment of Andrew? Do you think he could ever recover from this? We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe.